And you know, there was a group that just did this, a couple of years ago. They spent all this equipment or money on equipment and they didn't get anywhere. They stayed about 3 years and then they left because no one would talk to them. And then of course, interviewing the elders also had an issue because the life expectancy was really short. For the Lakota woman, the life expectancy was age 54, and for the man it was 48. There's also a very high population of people between the ages of 13 and say 35 that are committing suicide. I don't know if you guys know, but South Dakota is the state with the highest rate of suicide within our country. So yeah, those were some of the issues with promoting fitness among the teenage and young population. Poor health has become the normalcy of growing old. About 85% of the adults are living with diabetes. And so if you don't have any other example of health, this is normal of living, of aging. There's a little variety of produce on the reservation lands. And this is so true. I can't tell you how many places I went to eat and there were 3 options to have: fried chicken, pizza, or beer. And that was it. It was really difficult to find a variety of produce. So there was another issue that, and then also it's just so very difficult for them to create a business on their own land. They have to go through the BIA and vigorous, ridiculous hoops of governmental checks and balances. So getting something approved for nutrition is very, very difficult. And most of all, it was just simply hard to find teenagers and young adults. I mean, they just were not there. So I had to do some searching to find that. A couple of other things that were challenges. It appeared to be counterintuitive for the volunteers to accept me, as well as some of the full-time natives, as figureheads of relational ministry and authority figures. This was a population where the majority were Native American, the people that bordered on the outside were white, and less than 1% were African American. So they just didn't know what to do with me. And that played a part in, particularly at Tree of Life, the volunteers. I think of maybe seeing 40 to 60 volunteers per week, 1 or 2 of them were African American. Also, where did I leave off? Likewise, it felt counterintuitive for me, as well as some of the full-time Native American staff members of Tree of Life, to see ourselves as genuinely accepted of that group, non-natives, which is very odd because that was the group that I belonged to. So here I am, a non-native, feeling a little bit more comfortable in the Native American setting. So it was just really interesting. The advantages was the fact that I was an African American woman. When I got there, many people told me, hey, don't expect anybody to treat you different because you're black. They're going to treat you the same way that they treat everyone else. I found this not to be true, and I had to look at that. The percentage was less than 1%. So where was the proof? How did this become, a factual piece of information if no one had ever really been there to go outside of those lines? So, of course, I didn't question it until I got there, and I'm glad that I did. Another advantage, I wasn't old and I wasn't young. I was young enough to talk to a lot of the young adult youth population or teenage population and not to feel intimidated by me because I was older, and I was old enough to speak with the elders. I was old enough to respect their culture as much as I knew about it. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right, so next slide. Some of the rituals that I learned was smudging. That was something that we did in the chapel today. The sweat. A sweat is a purpose. The purpose of that is to do a couple of things before you go into other rituals. You have a big tomb, which it's like it's supposed to symbolize the womb of the mother, and you go in it and you all sweat and you sing different communal songs. The Uweepi ceremony, here's some of the procedures that you go through. Next slide. These are my students. When I finally found the youth and young adults, I started teaching them fitness dance classes, and they had fun. It was just wonderful to see them go from being really shy and timid about their bodies to, this right here. Look at those expressions on those young faces. And I just love to see them just get that excited about fitness. And here's some more. These are 2 of my interviewees. This is Glenn Janice. He made this right here out of buffalo bone. It's a feather, and I thought that was wonderful. A feather made out of something as hard as buffalo bone. On that side, that's Virginia Barrera. She's one of the older elders. She's actually in her 80s. Next slide. This is Hazel Marshall. She actually did a song for me that was the first two, the first two verses were in English, and the second two were in the Lakota language. And then you have the collector. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Medicine Man. These were women that I went running with in the morning. We got about 5-something in the morning. And next slide. More people that I will miss terribly. Next slide. More people. This was a group called Nakanula Wa'u, a native hip hop group. And that means always ready. It's a phrase that they use for soldiers. Next slide. Buffalo Jump, my host family, Russ and Donna, and some of the volunteers. Next slide. That's it, all I have.
All right.